Monsignor Sharon, colleagues, and distinguished guests. I am Jamesetta Halley-Boyce, Associate Professor from the College of Nursing. It is truly my honor today to welcome each of you to our 2010 Seton Hall University Charter Day convocation. Today we celebrate the establishment of our charter that was granted in 1861, and we also celebrate our rich history and our mission as a Catholic university. On this occasion, we honor those who have served the university well and long, and today we honor our student leaders and those outstanding individuals who support them. May I ask you to please join us as we sing the national anthem. Ms. Melissa Bellamy of the class of 2010 will lead us in the anthem, and she will be accompanied by Mr. Stephen Perinelli, the class of 2011. Please remain standing at the conclusion of the anthem while Monsignor Richard Liddy leads us in prayer.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rockets the bombs bursting in there gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Many years ago, when I was a young student, back in prehistory time, I had the privilege to have as my professor in Rome the renowned Canadian theologian Bernard Lonergan. Some years later, during the 1970s, Father Lonergan was invited to meet with the board of the directors of the American Studies Department of the Smithsonian Institute in Washington. At the end of an elegant dinner, the group gathered in the living room for a discussion. And during that time, one of the directors asked him a pointed question. Father Lonergan, if you were going to found a research institute, what would be its central theme, its focus? What question would it ask? And without missing a beat, Father Lonergan responded, why do people change their minds? Why do people change their minds? I think that beneath it all, this is the question that we as a university are asking. Why is it that young people come here, and what do they hope to get here? What do we hope will happen to them here? Why do they change their minds while they are here? And how does that happen? What is it they really seek? And even, why are there answers to questions at all? Who sets all this up? Who creates all this? It is very interesting to note that Mother Elizabeth Ann Seton read the writings of Thomas Paine when she was young, a skeptic and an Enlightenment figure if ever there was one, parallel to many writers of our own age. And yet the experiences of her heart and her mind led her to put all her chips into the existence of a loving God who was working through her mind, through the changes of her mind, and through her heart, and through her physical energy to found the largest private school system in the world. So in the world, you meet Thomas Paine and you meet others, and your beliefs and convictions are tested down to the tips of your toes, and you change your mind. You change radically, or you deepen what in some sense you have held all along. You change your mind perhaps from skeptical non-belief to belief, from uncritical fundamentalist belief to critical belief, and on the other side of skepticism, to what some have called a second naivete, a childlike openness to God and to the world God the Father is sustaining in all its billion-year massiveness and its teeming physical, chemical, biological, and yes, intellectual processes. A world that people who have changed their minds can help to illumine for one another. Today we pray for the intercession of St. Elizabeth Ann Seton, an American woman, a wife, a mother, an educator, the woman after whom this institution is named. Today, this institution is still doing what Mother Seton did for her first students in the early 19th century. That is, under the influence of divine grace and embodied in teachers and mentors and professors, helping people to change their minds. And in this place and at this time, we ask God's blessing on us all and on this university that we love, Seton Hall University. Amen.
I want to thank Melissa and Stephen for their beautiful rendition of the anthem. And thank you, Monsignor Liddy, for your warm and heartfelt invocation. Monsignor Robert Sharon is the 19th president of Seton Hall University. By the time he steps down at the end of June, he will have served longer than any other president in our history. During his tenure as our chief executive, the university's national reputation has increased as never before. And under his leadership, we have made great strides in academics and admissions, fundraising, and fulfilling Seton Hall's Catholic mission. We have been blessed to have him as our president, our colleague, and our friend. And I am so pleased and honored to present to you this Charter Day convocation, our Monsignor Robert Sharon, our president. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Doctor. As on my way out, I can say this. Is there a way we can put more lights on in the stage? I think it would be difficult. We were just chatting about that. If someone is in charge of the lighting, perhaps you could. Only 2 of the 10 lights are on. Thank you. But that's not my message. Welcome, everyone. I'm delighted to welcome you. Today is a day of tradition, and today is a day of history. We celebrate the history of this great university, just not the granting of the charter by the legislature in Trenton, although that does make us one of a handful of chartered higher educational institutions in the state and gives us a fair amount of freedom, which is handy from time to time. No, we celebrate the history, the Catholic mission, which over the decades has shaped a remarkable institution, and in fact, which has shaped a remarkable family. I think of the quote on the front of the National Archives in Washington: "The heritage of the past is the seed which will harvest the future." The past is important. I'm delighted to welcome everyone here today. I'm delighted in particular that Anthony DePalma is with us as our speaker. Anthony has an outstanding history as a journalist and a writer, and his talk then and now is very intriguing. I look forward to hearing that, Anthony. I can remember having dinner in my home with you. I think that's one of the first times we met. And Anthony's just an alumnus of whom I'm just exceptionally proud, a wide-ranging intellect with so many wonderful experiences all over the place. And I'm glad he has come full circle back to alma mater and share some of his experience and distilled wisdom with us. We honor today a number of Seton Hall members of the Seton Hall family, and you'll hear their stories in a little bit. People who are at meetings with me often in President's Hall, if a name comes up in one way or another, I often, if I like someone, say that that person is a good citizen of Seton Hall. And by that, and sometimes it can be someone who is on the staff or an administrator or vice president, faculty person. It doesn't make any difference. A good citizen of our very, if you want, sacred city here at Seton Hall. And by a good citizen, I mean someone who is competent in whatever they do, someone who is committed to the mission of the university, and someone who is concerned about other people and goes the extra mile. When I call people often to announce an award like a McQuaid Medal, I start off by saying, Jack, you have to do me a big favor. Now, I never start a conversation. I find it very impolite. But if I'm about to offer you a McQuaid Medal, and inevitably the people who get the award say, Monsignor, anything. And it reminds me that there are so many people here who will do anything and who will go the extra mile. And so we're so proud today that we are honoring servant leaders, men and women who make a difference or will continue to make a very big difference in the lives of others. Our 3 McQuaid medalists, our 2 presidential awardees for special service to students, and of course our servant leader scholarship recipients. Elizabeth Ann Seton, our eponymous patron. Some of you students can look up that word. Our name-giving patron. It is her name that seals the identity of this institution. And Mother Seton was not a writer, although she wrote a fair amount, but she was more of a doer than a writer. Can I see the program? You know, if you look, inevitably when we have a picture of Mother Seton, we have the picture of Mother Seton that's in front of Jubilee Hall. And just to remind the students, that picture depicts a particular moment in Elizabeth Seton's life. Early in the spring of 1807, she took her 5 children, and they got on a ship for New York. I think they stopped near Elizabeth, and they went down to Baltimore at the call of Bishop John Carroll to start a school. She was poor. The family had lost its money in the Depression, First American Depression of 1798. She was a widow. She was a recently converted Catholic, and she was a woman. So she had 4 strikes against her, and she had tried to start a school in her native New York, in New York City, but couldn't. And Bishop Carroll thought if she came to Baltimore, she might be able to have better luck. And she went to Baltimore, and, well, she reaped an amazing harvest because of her boldness. And that moment depicts the moment in the spring of 1807 when she took that great risk and did something bold with 5 kids around her, very little money, and followed the call of God. I feel her very much at my side during these days, because often when God has a call, he has a purpose, which he did not reveal to Mother Seton, and he has not revealed to Monsignor Sheeran yet. But those of us who love and trust God are always willing to move into the future. There's very few of her writings around here on campus, but in a little chapel on the 2nd floor of President's Hall, in a stained glass window, there's a few words that read like this: in service, life is exalted. It's from Mother Seton. In service, life is exalted. The one who serves has a fuller life. and the one who is served has a fuller life. Welcome all today. St. Elizabeth Ann Seton, pray for us. God bless you.
Thank you, Monsignor Sharon, for your inspiring words. Those of you may know that Monsignor's last charter day as president is today. We would hope that he would come back to other charter days, but today is his last day as president on the Charter Day convocation, and I would just ask that you would give him another round of applause. It is now my pleasure to introduce the keynote speaker for the Charter Day convocation, Professor Anthony DePalma, writer in residence in the Department of Communications in the College of Arts and Sciences. Anthony DePalma was a student in Seton Hall in the 1970s. He spent 22 years as a reporter and foreign correspondent with the New York Times. He has returned to Seton Hall as a member of the faculty, and we are so very pleased that today he is going to give us his perspective from both sides of the lectern, as student and now as professor. Professor DePalma.
Thank you very much. Thank you. This sort of reminds me of my very first class here. Thank you. It's good to have friends in high places. Now about that raise, it reminds me of my very first day as a member of the faculty in the very first class that I had to teach here. I walked into took a deep breath, first of all, like this, as I just did, and walked into the class, boldly up to the front of the classroom, wrote my name on the board, put my briefcase on the desk, looked my students squarely in the eye, and said to them, you know, I'm way out of my comfort zone, but if you bear with me, we'll all get through this together. And they sort of looked at me strange, and I have not ever taught a class like that here. I thought I'd done something wrong, and I said, U.S. Latin America and the media, right? DePalma, 236? And they went, no, 237. The door was open all the way, and it blocked the sign that said 236, 237. So, still not enough light, but we're good. That's the kind of double take that I've experienced quite often since returning to Seton Hall last year. You know, I think I know the place well because I spent 5 years here, but a lot of time has passed. Since coming back, I've had to develop a special double vision that lets me see things as they were and also as they are now. When there are discrepancies, as there often are, I try to reconcile the differences. My success varies. The very first day of faculty orientation, we were supposed to meet at the library. I came here because this is where the library was the last time I was on campus. And of course, it was the summer, and it was 8:30 in the morning, and there was nobody here. So there was no one to ask. And I didn't know where it was until finally I ran across a grad student who happened to be wandering by. Looked at me kind of strange, but he pointed me over to the right spot. I'm truly honored to be here at Seton Hall and to have been asked to give this address on Charter Day. But I have to tell you, as I began to gather thoughts about what I would say, I planned to give initially an inspirational speech, talking about what Seton Hall meant to me when I was an undergraduate and how I feel about it now. Then something happened. I read Monsignor Sharon's reflections in the Seton Hall magazine. in which he described the excitement he felt on the very day that his parents dropped him off at Boland Hall in 1963. At a faculty retreat recently, I heard Al Haycom tell a similarly touching story about his first time on campus, way back when. I soon realized that I didn't have that kind of experience to talk about, and that trying to describe some moment like that would be less than authentic. The truth is that for many years I resented having been here at Seton Hall, especially when I got to the New York Times and rubbed shoulders with people from Harvard, Princeton, Yale, people who had read more, seen more, done more, far more than I had. I saw their accomplishments and inevitably compared them to my own, thinking, you know, what could I be doing if I had gone to college somewhere else? What if I had that same Ivy League title linked to my name? Instead of the Ivies, I had come to Seton Hall. I don't remember my first day, and there certainly was no golden moment when my parents dropped me off. They came out to South Orange twice during the time that I was a student here, once for orientation and once for commencement. For them, second-generation Italian Americans from Hoboken, New Jersey, college was something way beyond their reckoning. No one in our large family had gone to college. My father had 8 brothers and sisters, and none of them, or their children, had attended college. I was the 5th of 6 children, and none of my older siblings had even applied. In that culture, at that time, it just wasn't something that was expected of us. It was the Christian brothers in my high school who encouraged me to dare to think about college. And for years, my local parish in Hoboken, Our Lady of Grace, gave out a centennial parochial scholarship to Seton Hall. Not knowing any better, and without much guidance, I applied here without scheduling a campus visit or an interview, and I didn't apply anywhere else, figuring that the scholarship was a sure thing. And it would be a great story to tell you that I won that scholarship and I'm here and that's how it all happened. But the year that I graduated from high school, OLG decided for whatever reason not to give the scholarship. There was no way that my father, a longshoreman on the Hoboken piers, could pay a college tuition, even one that charged only $48.50 a credit. If I wanted to go to college, $48.50, and that was after an increase. If I wanted to go to college, I'd have to pay for it myself. So when the fall semester began on September 3rd, 1970, I drove from Hoboken in my 1963 Chevy Impala, crossing the Pulaski Skyway to Newark's Raymond Boulevard, slipping under Penn Station to Market Street, and linking up to South Orange Avenue in Newark's devastated Central Ward. The riots were just 3 years in the past then, and that part of Newark looked like a war zone. It felt like I was driving through one, too, and the drive only got worse during my time here. It was gritty urban reality, not some golden dreamscape. The early 1970s, while I was here, was a time of transition at Seton Hall. Monsignor Fay had just taken over as president. Bill Raftery had just replaced Richie Regan as basketball coach. Shortly after I arrived, ground was broken for the first women's dorm. Ground would be broken during my time here for the new business school, where I now have my office in what is now Arts and Science Hall, and the nursing school, as well as the addition to Duffy Hall for the prep, which was here at the time. The Patterson campus was closed. The pub was opened. I went to see Jesus Christ Superstar in the gym, but missed Saul Alinsky reading from Rules for Radicals in the Student Center. Actually, I missed a lot, and that helps me understand what it is like for many of the students who are in my classes today who are trying to work and go to school at the same time. I did manage to take a room off campus in my 3rd year, and that gave me time to get involved in my only after-class activity at Seton Hall. the Setonian. At the end of my junior year, I was nominated to run for editor-in-chief of the Setonian. I lost. I lost that election to a young woman who became the first female editor in the Setonian's 50-year history. But it was okay, because I won the first full-year internship at New Jersey Public Television, which gave me a great start in the news business. I was actually producing the nightly newscast when a cub reporter named Kent Manahan, now a member of the Board of Regents, dropped off her audition tape and began to freelance there. That year-long internship forced me to stretch my time here at Seton Hall into a 5th year and allowed my younger sister, Rochelle, who did get the OLG scholarship and started Seton Hall a year after I did, to catch up with me. We graduated together on May 17, 1975. Our commencement speaker was Senator Harrison Williams, who decried the lack of ethical standards and described American society as, quote, not nearly as honest as it was even a few decades ago. Just a little over 5 years later, I was writing news pieces about Williams' arrest and conviction for taking bribes from a phony Arab sheikh in the FBI sting known as Abscam. Our parents did come to our commencement. 1 week later, we were all back on campus, in the chapel, and in the courtyard behind the chapel, where I married an emerald-eyed young woman named Miriam. We will celebrate our 35th anniversary in a few weeks. Believe it or not, I've been in journalism even longer than that, ever since that year-long internship. After a few years in television news, I switched over to newspapers, despite my advisors in the communication department telling me that newspapers were dying and that TV was the future. I've written thousands of articles since then, most of them for the New York Times, where I worked for 22 years as foreign correspondent and reporter, until coming back to Seton Hall a little over a year ago at the invitation of Monsignor Shearer. I've interviewed presidents and covered wars. I've looked for truth in countries around the world. I've seen terrible things and wonderful things, and never lost my sense of wonder about the world. Since coming back to Seton Hall, I suppose it's inevitable that I try to put my time here into perspective. Applying that double vision that I mentioned earlier and taking a long view of the university's history, as well as my own, my time here takes on a different meaning altogether. When I arrived in 1970, by our calculations, a total of about 100,000 students, cumulatively, had studied here before me since Seton Hall was founded in 1856. According to, where's Alan? Delosier. Yeah. According to our best calculations, in the 40 years since my first day here, another 200,000 undergraduates have enrolled. As my life has gone by, so has the university's. And that puts me in mind of something that one of the writers who's been most important to me, T.S. Eliot, wrote about time and our perception of it. Quote, "What we call the beginning is often the end, and to make an end is to make a beginning." Besides covering Mexico and Cuba and writing about the environment for the Times, one of my assignments had been covering higher education. During the years that I had that beat, I developed a deeper understanding of college campuses and how each one acts as a community in and of itself. I learned and wrote about the intensity of university politics, which I'm now only brushing up against, and about the disparity between the long road to building a reputation and the short trip to losing that good name. It seemed to me to be logical to think of the college experience for students as pouring, and for the university they attend, as pouring new wine into old bottles every year. But coming back, in essence, having a chance at a do-over, and looking at it the way I can now, I think this metaphor is all wrong. Rather than refilling wine bottles, which is a limited activity, It's really much more of an ongoing cumulative process, like the way a coral reef grows. Each living cell leaving a tiny bit of itself behind, new cells move in, building the whole structure outward. Instead of a wine bottle, the university is much more like a computer hard drive that, with the marvels of advancing technology, can hold ever more information. I read an article in The Economist recently about the explosion of information and how it has nearly exceeded our ability to imagine it. We all know about bytes, megabytes, gigabytes. But did you know that this year about 1,200 exabytes of digital data will be generated? That's 2 to the 60th power. Beyond that, it's estimated that a typical American household will be bombarded with 3.6 zettabytes of information and data this year, much of that being the bits that come with video games and television programs. A zettabyte is 2 to the 70th power. And the International Bureau of Weights and Measures has designated the next step up this ladder as a, believe it or not, yottabyte, 2 to the 90th power. And that is equivalent to an amount of data currently too big to imagine. But it probably won't be unimaginable for long. This Charter Day provides an appropriate opportunity for re-examining Seton Hall's mission and Seton Hall's goal as a university. I stand before you not as an expert, but instead as just one of those 300,000 students who've passed through here since 1856. One who for a long time was disappointed with Seton Hall, until I realized that I had asked and been asking the wrong question. Over all that time, I had wanted to know how my life would have been different if I had gone to some other university instead of Seton Hall. But that clearly is revisionist history. Again, quoting from T.S. Eliot, "What might have been and what has been point to one end, which is always present. Footfalls echo in the memory, down the passage which we did not take, towards the door we never opened, into the rose garden." The question all the while, the question that I should have been asking myself all that time, should have been, how would my life have been different had I not gone to Seton Hall? Because in the reality of who I was then and where I had come from, the truth is, if I hadn't come to Seton Hall, I probably would not have been able to go to any university. Now, with the question framed in this way, I can look back at my life as a series of events leading from one to the other, connected in important ways, so that each one would have been impossible without the achievement of what had come before. And often in tracing back the sequence of those events, I find myself starting right here at Seton Hall. Even now, while I'm in the middle of conducting this experiment of recreating my life once again, I have found myself starting at this same point. Again, Eliot said, "Time present and time past are both perhaps present in time future." If it's true that part of Seton Hall's mission as a Catholic university is the refinement of faith and the recognition of true values, then I can say without hesitation that these are the lasting benefits of my brief time here. And I now realize that in the end, they are worth far more than any Ivy League title. Recently, Monsignor Sheeran pointed out something to me about choosing true values, and it struck a nerve. After he announced his resignation at the end of the last academic year, I asked him what he was going to do next. In response, he said he really wasn't sure, and he recited what he said was an old Zen saying, which was, "Leap and the net will appear." That, of course, is a true expression of faith. And I've come to realize that not only has it applied to my own decision to come back to Seton Hall, but that it is something that the university instilled in me long ago. And that's what a top-notch university ought to do. Not prepare students to see the path all the way across the gap into the distant future, but rather to see what might be the first step, and then building the faith and values that will guide them through to the next one, and the next one after that, and the one after that. If there have been 300,000 students who enrolled in Seton Hall in all these years, there probably have been 300,000 different meanings for what the university has been. Some of those 300,000, like me, might at times have been disappointed. I'm sure many who are on campus today are just waiting for their time here to end. But I hope that as their hard drives fill with ever more data and they compile ever more experiences about life, that they too have a chance to look back and frame questions differently so that the light of truth can shine through. That is a worthy goal and a sustaining commitment for the community that is Seton Hall. I want to thank you sincerely for giving me this opportunity and for welcoming me back to the hall. Thank you.
I thank you, Professor DePalma, for your words of reflection, renewal, and wisdom. The Bishop Bernard J. McQuaid Medal for Distinguished Service is awarded annually to long-serving members of the Seton Hall community who have demonstrated outstanding service and commitment to the university's mission. We are pleased to honor 3 individuals today. Introducing this year's McQuaid Medalist is Father Paul Holmes, Executive Vice President for Administration, and Monsignor Robert Shuren will present the medals. Father Holmes.
I have the pleasure to ask Dr. Joseph DiPiero to please stand. Dr. DiPiero has served students, colleagues, and the university in many roles during his 40 years at Seton Hall. In the College of Education and Human Services, he has been chair of the Department of Educational Studies, acting chair of the Department of Counseling and Special Services, and program director for elementary education and general professional education. As dean of the college, Dr. DiPiero has worked tirelessly to support the faculty in their efforts to achieve numerous accreditations. His leadership style generates a positive culture that has led to innovations in curriculum, program development, collaborative research, and a sense of shared mission to develop competent, socially conscious, reflective professionals. Dr. DiPiero has been and continues to be an outstanding teacher. In fall 2008 and 2009, he taught the first course in the core curriculum sequence. Never content to do the same thing each semester, he is a reflective practitioner who revises and updates course content and presentation on a regular basis. When speaking about the classroom, in fact, a gleam appears in his eyes. Teaching for Joe has always been about learning along with his students. Beyond coursework, Dr. DiPiero has also served his students by mentoring doctoral candidates and working as a clinical supervisor to student teachers. Dr. Joseph DiPiero deeply respects the history, culture, and mission of Seton Hall University. His commitment to serve and lead makes him an excellent role model to those who have had the good fortune to work with him and learn from him. For his service to Seton Hall University, Joseph DiPiero is a most worthy recipient of the Bishop Bernard J. McQuaid Medal. Dr. DiPiero, please come forward to receive your medal. Will John H. Shannon please stand? For almost 30 years, Jack Shannon has been an exceptionally effective, efficient, and energetic member of the Seton Hall community. He joined the university administration in 1977 and has served on the faculty of the Stillman School of Business since 1982. He led the Stillman School as dean and served as a member of the president's executive cabinet as vice president for university affairs. Jack's unflagging efforts for the advancement of the university include successful capital and identity campaigns, strategic planning, and his leadership of the crisis communication plan following the tragic Bowling Hall fire in 2000. He was a leader in the development of the university's award-winning mobile computing plan and led the effort to establish the Whitehead School of Diplomacy and International Relations, a project which involved the development of innovative curricula and the creation of a unique alliance with the United Nations Association. In the classroom, Professor Shannon is widely praised by his students as an innovative, thoughtful, and caring teacher. He continues to be a pioneer in the use of information technology, and he has recently introduced the use of wikis and blogs to his courses, promoting ever new opportunities for student engagement and learning. Jack continues to demonstrate his dedication to Seton Hall and its core mission and values. Over the past few years, he has participated in the development of a new strategic plan and has been a contributing member of the university's sustainability committee. He serves as a role model to students as he demonstrates the importance of living the values-centered education provided at the university, both in and outside of the classroom. For his service to Seton Hall University, John H. Shannon is a most worthy recipient of the Bishop Bernard J. McQuaid Medal. Jack, please come forward to receive your medal. Will Mabel Wong please stand? Mabel Wong has been a friendly face behind the front desk in Walsh Library since she was hired as a circulation clerk in 1989. 3 years later, she was promoted to her current position of day circulation supervisor. Mabel was involved in the implementation of several library initiatives, among them the Easy Borrow program. Through this program, library patrons can reserve materials online through a consortium that shares resources with such institutions as Carnegie Mellon, Temple, and Rutgers Universities, and the University of Pennsylvania. Mabel also contributed to the implementation of Shoeflix, Seton Hall's own Netflix account, through which faculty and staff can reserve films. Mabel provides optical character recognition service for visually impaired students, where she scans documents in preparation for viewing on specialized readers. This service enables the visually impaired to receive book chapters, articles, and other materials electronically so that they can view the documents on their personal readers. Helping people find what they need to find in order to do what they need to do. This is what Mabel enjoys most about working in the library, her ability to help people. Faculty, students, visitors, and staff can always rely on Mabel to point them in the right direction and assist them with their research projects. She's also served the university and members of the local 153 bargaining unit as shop steward, and more recently as assistant chief steward. As assistant chief steward, she assumes a leadership role in the absence of the chief steward, who describes Mabel as the quiet one who walks softly and carries a big stick. Mabel is a member of Seton Hall's Community Emergency Response Team and stands ready to assist in any emergency, not only in the library, but anywhere else on campus as well. For her service to Seton Hall University, Mabel Wong is a most worthy recipient of the Bishop Bernard J. McQuaid Medal. Mabel, please come forward to receive your medal.
Thank you, Father Holmes and Monsignor Sharon. And congratulations to the recipients. The President's Awards for Student Service. It is now, I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. Forgive me. I think Father Holmes returns. Is that not right? Yes, you return. Congratulations to the 2010 McQuaid medalists. Responsiveness to the needs of our students have been essential to the mission of Seton Hall since our founding more than 150 years ago. The President's Award for Student Service is awarded annually to individuals who are nominated by our students. The award winners this year have rendered outstanding service to our students and have demonstrated their commitment to listening and responding to the needs, the suggestions, the concerns of our students in countless ways. It is my pleasure to welcome back again to the podium Father Paul Holmes, who will introduce two individuals who will receive the President's Award for Student Service. And Monsignor Robert Sharon will also present the awards at this time. All yours.
Will Christopher Breen please stand? Since 2007, Chris Breen has served as the Associate Director of Academic Support Services for student athletes after spending a year as an academic advisor at Seton Hall. Chris earned his bachelor's degree in business administration from Fordham University in 2001, where he was a linebacker, visibly so, a linebacker on the varsity football team. And he earned a master's degree in school counseling from Manhattanville College in 2006. Chris is the primary liaison between the men's basketball program and Seton Hall's academic community. He works directly with the men's basketball team on a daily basis, setting up class schedules, tests, and tutoring sessions. And he oversees the academic progress for all of the players and guides them toward their degrees in their respective courses of study. But Chris's job description only tells part of the story. His connection to the students he works with is evident in the following selections from those who nominated him. One student wrote, "Chris Breen has shown exemplary service to the needs of students. If you stop by Chris's office outside of regular business hours, chances are you will find him still tutoring a student athlete. On some days, it may be at 8 a.m. On other days, it may be at 8 p.m. During hectic academic periods, it may easily be at 8 a.m. and 8 p.m. And still another student wrote, "The basketball team has great respect for Chris because of his honesty, and they will do their homework or show up on time for events primarily because Chris asked them to." For his service to our students, Christopher Breen is a most worthy recipient of the President's Award for Student Service. Christopher, please come forward to receive your award. Will James Kimball please stand? Professor James Kimball has been on the faculty at Seton Hall University since 2005, having earned his PhD 4 years earlier from the University of Maryland. He teaches in the Department of Communication, and his students enjoy courses such as communication theory, the history of rhetoric, rhetorical criticism, persuasion, and oral comm. What many may not know is that Professor Kimball also serves as the university's fellowships advisor. In this role, he guides future Rhodes Scholars and candidates for the Marshall, Truman, Goldwater, and Fulbright scholarships through what has to be called a sometimes grueling competitive application process. Professor Kimball's research focuses on domestic propaganda, war rhetoric, and visual imagery. His first book, Mobilizing the Home Front, War Bonds and Domestic Propaganda, was published in 2006. Other research appears in journals such as Women in Language, Rhetoric and Public Affairs, Southern Communication Journal, and the Quarterly Journal of Speech. Here is an excerpt from one of the nominations Professor Kimball received for the President's Award for Student Service. Dr. Kimball is one of the people I respect most at Seton Hall University for his continuous support and dedication to his students. He goes above and beyond in his position by doing things such as answering emails immediately, always making time for meetings, reading essays, and offering suggestions as to what to apply for. I think Dr. Kimball's commitment is outstanding, and he is an amazing asset to Seton Hall University. He is what all professors should aspire to be, someone who truly cares about their students and continuously supports them in anything they want to do or be. For his service to our students, James Kimball is a most worthy recipient of the President's Award for Student Service. Dr. Kimball, please come forward to receive your award.
Thank you, Father Holmes and Monsignor Sharon. And congratulations. It is now my pleasure to introduce Dr. David Foster, Director of the Center for Vocation and Servant Leadership, who will present this year's Servant Leader Scholars. Dr. Foster.
Thank you, James Seta, and thank you, Monsignor Sharon. As Director of the Center for Vocation and Servant Leadership, it is my privilege to introduce this year's Servant Leader Scholars. In our center hangs a painting by Ford Maddox Brown of the scene from John's Gospel where Jesus washes his disciples' feet. It shows the upper room on the evening of the Last Supper. The 12 are gathered around the table. Some are bent to loosen the tie of their sandals. Some peer over the shoulder of a reluctant Peter. And all have their eyes fixed on Jesus as he washes Peter's feet. The painting has become somewhat of an emblem for our program, and it suggests at least two lessons. First, like Peter, many are puzzled by this paradoxical reality, servant leadership. Second, as the scene plays out, we are given an explanation of the paradox from the lips of Jesus, who says, "Do you understand what I just did for you? You address me as teacher and Lord, and fittingly enough, for that is what I am. But if I washed your feet, I who am teacher and Lord, then you must wash each other's feet. What I just did was to give you an example. As I have done, so you must do." Often, examples are the key to our understanding of a difficult concept. Our Servant Leader Scholars program is about providing living examples of servant leadership. Allow me to introduce some good examples. First, I will ask our seniors to stand as their name is called, and for the audience to hold their applause until all the seniors have been introduced. Catherine Andreski, from Wilkesboro, North Carolina, a chemistry major, and also captain of the women's soccer team. Katie will return to Seton Hall next year for graduate studies in theology, and perhaps another year of soccer. Emily Cody from Rapid City, South Dakota, will soon be a diplomacy graduate. But even before coming to Seton Hall, Emily gave a year of service to victims of Hurricane Katrina. Among her many accomplishments, Emily is captain of the Bronson speech and debate team, currently ranked 13th in the nation. After graduation, Emily plans to return to New Orleans, where she will teach special education with Teach for America. Allison Marin from Buffalo, New York. Allison earned her degrees in diplomacy. After a year of volunteer service with AmeriCorps, Allison plans to continue her studies in diplomacy with a specialization in public health and development. Let me ask you to turn and face the audience. Now hold your applause, please. I know they're great. Elizabeth McKenna from Annandale, New Jersey, a nursing major and a member of the Alpha Sigma Tau sorority where she serves in leadership roles. Liz has felt for several years that she has a calling to religious life. This August, she will join the Little Sisters of the Poor to devote herself to their mission of caring for the elderly. Diana Schwegman from Salina, Ohio, is a diplomacy major who last year was named a Pickering Foreign Affairs Fellow. After doing an internship with the State Department this summer, Diana will pursue graduate studies in diplomacy at Georgetown. Tim Sporsik from Omaha, Nebraska. He will graduate with a degree in finance. Through his participation with Dove, Tim has worked at the St. John's Soup Kitchen and has gone on a service trip to El Salvador. When he graduates, he will be working for the U.S. Treasury audit team. Watch out. Margaret Stradecki from Rutherford, New Jersey, is a nursing major graduating after only 3 years. But happily, she will return to us to do a graduate degree in nursing. Maggie is a generous servant leader who, for 7 years, has helped the New Day community serve adults with disabilities. Finally, Annie Toohill from Warren, New Jersey, will graduate with a degree in nursing. During her senior year, Annie has led a household of other Seton Hall women who wanted to live in a small Christian community. After graduation, she plans to work in the intensive care unit of Overlook Hospital, where she served an internship. Please congratulate our seniors. Now, more briefly, I would like to mention our other servant leader scholars represented here. We have Mary Anderson, a sophomore from Monhegan Lake, majoring in accounting. Please stand. Kim Bauernfend, a sophomore from Howell, New Jersey, majoring in biology. James Bischoff, a junior from Freehold, New Jersey, majoring in marketing. Nicholas Carrico, a sophomore from Kearney, New Jersey, majoring in social and behavioral sciences. Anthony Cremon, a freshman from Monroe, Connecticut, majoring in sports management. Cassie Denbo, a freshman from Cleveland, Ohio, majoring in diplomacy and international relations. Lisa Ditto, a junior from Whippany, New Jersey, majoring in elementary education and environmental studies. Amanda Genoveth, a sophomore from Watchung, New Jersey, as yet undecided. Maura Kelly, a freshman from Morris Plains, New Jersey, majoring in elementary special education. Timothy LaCrasse, a sophomore from Forked River, New Jersey, majoring in public relations and journalism, a member of the Setonian staff. Samantha Lee, a sophomore from Lincoln Park, New Jersey, majoring in marketing and management. Vincent Lobello, a freshman from Cedar Knolls, New Jersey, majoring in Catholic theology. Stephanie Pereira, a freshman, majoring in nursing. Daniel Quibido, sophomore from Belle Chase, Louisiana, majoring in Catholic theology. Stephanie Rigger, a junior from Union, New Jersey, majoring in nursing. Elaine San Juan, a sophomore from Garfield, New Jersey, majoring in biology. Kelly Zimmerman, a freshman from Milford, Connecticut, majoring in special education with a concentration in speech and language. And finally, a graduate student in his doctoral studies, Father Martin Okoro from Nigeria, doing his doctorate in educational leadership. Please congratulate our scholars.
Thank you, Dr. Foster, and congratulations to our servant leader scholars. Well, this concludes our Charter Day convocation for 2010. Following the recessional, I invite everyone to join us for a light refreshment reception in the Jubilee Hall in the lobby, just outside of this room. And may I now ask Ms. Melissa Bellamy and Stephen Pellinelli to come and lead us in the alma mater. And may I ask that you please remain standing until all of the dais, guests, and party have exited the auditorium. I thank you all for coming to our Charter Day Convocation 2010.